Hi guys, we are going to be learning today about how to use data to make graphs. You are going to be filling in your types of graphs Cornell notes while you watch this. Feel free to pause or rewind if you need to. The underlined words are the blanks that you are filling in on your note sheet, and the note sheet is going to go on page 35 in your science notebook. So today our goals are to be able to determine the correct graph to use to complete a scientific investigation. We are also going to be learning which types of graphs to use, what are the names of the graphs, what do the graphs look like, and how do I know which graph to use. So data is information. Again, any underlined words are going to go in your notes. So information right here is going to go into your notes. In my 6th grade class, we took a pizza lover survey and we learned that 10 kids liked pepperoni pizza best. 9 kids like sausage pizza best. 7 kids like cheese pizza best. This type of information is called data. If a mom was planning a pizza party for the class, she would need the pizza lover survey data. She needs to know who likes what kind of pizza to know what type of pizzas to order. Your report card is another example of data. So the percentages that you're getting in each class. Data is everywhere. TV, newspapers, books. There's tons of data in school, like Schoology, how you're doing on tests, your MCA scores. There's all kinds of data. Data about how many boys go to the school, how many girls go to the school, what is your age, what is your grade, where do you live, all that kind of information is data. People use data to make money. Data is needed to build things. The data can be used for research. Data can be very confusing. Lots of numbers to keep track of. We use graphs to organize data. Graphs make data easier to understand. So, for example, here is a picture of a data table, and without the graph, it takes a while to understand. You're trying to figure out what animal do they have the most of? What animal do they have the least of? Which animals do they have similar amounts of? If you look at it on a graph, it's much quicker to see that chickens are the most, horses are the least, they have similar numbers of cows and mules. So putting it in a data table and then making a graph is much quicker than just reading the information. There are many different types of graphs. The 4 types that we're going to learn about are bar graphs, which compares how much of something or how many of something, and it often means you have several groups of information. For example, in this graph, you have groups of classes, and you're looking at your scores in each individual class, but they're not necessarily related. Okay, a line graph shows change over time. Change over time, like, could be months, seconds, hours, days, any kind of time. A pie chart is used to show percentages or parts of a whole. So it could be how much you spend out of your whole family budget. It could be the percentage of people using your Netflix account out of your total Netflix usage. So mom uses it 30% of the time, dad uses it 20% of the time, kids use it 50% of the time. And when you add them all up, you get 100%. Scatter plots show a relationship between the x and y axis. These are often thought of as a line graph, but a line graph, remember, is only over time, where a scatter plot can have any 2 things on the x and y axis. In this one, you have the temperature outside compared to the number of visits to the zoo. And you can see how the warmer the temperature is, the more visits you get. So it can be any 2 variables that you are relating. Different types of graphs can show the same data. You can have a bar graph that shows your percentages in your classes, and you can have a scatter plot that shows your data in the same percentages. A graph must include the following information: a title explaining what the graph is representing. This goes on the top of the graph. Label for the X and Y axis, and the label must have a unit. An accurate scale for the Y axis. Remember, the scale is what you count by. The independent variable on the X axis, that's the variable that does not, that's the variable that you're going to control. That's the variable you're changing on purpose. And the dependent variable is the variable that you're measuring, and it depends on the independent variable. So you can see on this graph, the y-axis has your percentages and they count by evens amounts. The x-axis has your classes. You have your titles of your axes. You have the scale, which is the numbers. And then you don't have a title on this whole graph yet. On the line graph, you have the title. You have the y-axis with your scale, x-axis with your labeled parts, the labels of each axis. Okay, when you read a bar graph, you are going to just go from the top of the bar over to the y-axis, and you would see in math, you have 90%. So you have to put the x and the y information together. In language arts, you have a 55%. Which bar on the graph represents 45 meters? So for this one, you have to estimate in between the 40 and the 50 because there is no 45 on the y-axis. So if you go in between the 40 and the 50, you see that climber B has 45 meters. At Elm Street School, students have computer class once a week. The chart shows the number of minutes each class spends in the computer lab. Which is the most appropriate graph of the information? So here they're showing third grade has 25 minutes, fourth grade has 30 minutes, fifth grade has 35 minutes, sixth grade has 45 minutes. Here they have third grade has 25, fourth grade has 35, fifth has 35, sixth has 40. Which one is correct? Right, graph A is the correct graph because you did not appropriately line up the numbers from the data table with the graph, and so graph B has incorrect information. You should be finished with your notes now. Great job. Thank you for taking the time to fill them out. If you missed any information, feel free to back up this presentation. You can now complete your practice for identifying which type of graph to use on page 34 in your science notebook. Thank you for taking the time to do this today.